with sirens blaring and air defenses intercepting the projectiles. Alarms sounded across Israel and sent people scrambling for shelter. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said the missile salvo was in retaliation for recent Israeli killings of militant leaders and aggression in Lebanon and Gaza. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched. The attack drew vows of a sharp response from both Israel and the United States, with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying Iran made a big mistake and will pay for it. The Pentagon said U.S. Navy warships helped Israel intercept the missiles. U.S. President Joe Biden said Iran's attack was, quote, ineffective.
Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
Iran's foreign ministry said its operation was defensive and was only directed at Israeli military and security facilities. No injuries were reported in Israel, but authorities in the occupied West Bank said one man was killed there. Meanwhile, in Tehran, people celebrated the bombardment. Some hoisted posters of the recently assassinated Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, locked in nearly a year of war, also celebrated as the rockets headed towards Israel. The missile strikes come after Israel said its troops launched ground raids into Lebanon, which it has described as limited. But a ground campaign into Lebanon for the first time in 18 years, pitting Israeli soldiers against Hezbollah, Iran's best armed proxy force in the Middle East, would be a major regional escalation. The Lebanese Health Ministry said more than 50 people were killed and more than 150 wounded in Israeli attacks across Lebanon on Tuesday.
Well, Iran has fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's allies, the Hezbollah in Lebanon. Now, waves of projectiles were seen over Tel Aviv and Jaffa, with some being intercepted by the air defense systems like David's Sling as well as the Iron Dome. Now, these ballistic missiles traveled through airspaces of various countries before reaching its targets in Tel Aviv as well as in Jaffa and across some parts of Israel. Now, what the Iranian authorities are saying is that they have targeted Israel's military infrastructure, and this is what they have in fact said. Netanyahu, meanwhile, saying it is a big mistake carried out by them. Iran fires a barrage of missiles from its bases, and these missiles in fact traveled through several countries, from Iraq, then it moved through Jordan, and after many of them in fact did capture these missiles moving through their airspaces early in the night, and they have in fact taken visuals of it as well. These are in fact the visuals that show the kind of impact these missiles are having. This is another visuals that was captured from the night sky in Israel, where it was lit up with Iranian missiles crisscrossing the country and especially targeting Jaffa as well as Tel Aviv. Well, Jaffa is the port city in Israel as well, and Tel Aviv is considered to be its commercial capital. Here are visuals of Israeli soldiers in fact lying on the ground as their bases are being hit by Iranian missiles. These visuals were captured at the moment of it. Some of the residents were able to also recover parts of the rockets or the missiles that were in fact launched from Iran, and this was in fact a part of it was found in a neighborhood in Israel, and this was in fact the impact of it that has had on the ground as of now. However, reports of casualties have not yet come in, and it is being said that most of them have been intercepted. The missiles have been intercepted. These are in fact the craters that were created because on the impact of these missiles in Israel. Now, Israel has a robust air defense system that has intercepted several of the missiles that were launched by Iran. And these are in fact visuals coming in from a school that was hit by the missiles. Earlier, the military had announced that any ballistic missile strike from Iran was expected to be widespread and told the public to, in fact, be in the shelter in safe rooms in the event of the attack. The Iranian missile launches came after Israeli ground troops had launched raids into Lebanon and its warplanes bombed from the skies. The attack came on the heels of Israel escalating its offensive on Hezbollah and retaliation for the recent killing of Hezbollah commander Hassan Nasrallah. Most of the nearly 200 missiles were intercepted by Israeli as well as U.S. defenses, and there were in fact no known fatalities in Israel from this attack. These are in fact the impact that are seen here. A restaurant which was hit on your screens, which is being shown, where the glass was in fact shattered on the impact of it. On the other side, a crater being created because of a missile attack that has been reported in Israel. These were the visuals, the night sky being lit up by Iranian missiles that fell over Israel. Let's now, in fact, show you some visuals coming in from the attack that has happened. The moment of impact of a missile in area of Tel Aviv was caught on camera as Iran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles. This was, in fact, caught from an apartment building in Tel Aviv, where one of the residents, who was in fact capturing on his mobile phone the missiles that were moving through its night skies, it was able to capture one of the missiles impacting it. You can see how the missile in fact picks up speed and slams into a target, and the loud explosion is in fact seen on it. These are the visuals that were coming in from Israel as Israel faces the Iranian missile onslaught. There are several residents who have in fact taken up these pictures of the night sky where the Iranian missiles were captured and how those explosions have rocked the urban suburbs as well as the cities in Israel. This particularly from a view from an apartment building in Israel, which captures the Iranian missile flying straight towards its target and creating a huge explosion in the night sky of Tel Aviv. The Tel Aviv skyline hit with explosions and missiles that were coming in from Iran. It was a salvo of missiles that was fired by Iran, and these are in fact said to be the ballistic missiles that were fired in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel has in fact vowed painful response against its enemy. Sirens were sounded across Israel and explosions could be heard in Jerusalem and at the Jordan River Valley. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched into Israel. These are numbers coming in from Israel, while Iran has said that more than 200 missiles were launched from there, and Israeli air defenses have been activated to intercept them. U.S. Navy warships fired about a dozen interceptors against Iranian missiles headed towards Israel.
Yo! נפילה! לא מאמין! לא מאמין! יו! נפילה! לא מאמין! לא מאמין!
We slip into a short break now. News updates will continue on the other side as we get you the latest from West Asia.
Let yourself flow with the turn of each tide.
Salty winds, you sweeten your ride.
Maharashtra,
Maharashtra, it's a hit.
Maharashtra tourism.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
Joe Biden is not going to be the Democratic presidential nominee.
I made my choice. Kamala Harris. She's experienced. She's tough. She's capable.
I took on perpetrators of all kinds, predators. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
I am the one saving democracy.
He has tapped into the fear and anxiety about demographic change in the U.S.
This polarization in the United States. Some people are even suggesting that there could be a civil war.
You are this unable to solve your own domestic problems. You have no right to claim to be anybody else in the world, and we're moving into a multipolar world where the United States will not lead.
This and more. Streaming on News9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Meanwhile, projectors were also seen soaring over Jerusalem as the air raid sirens blared across the city following a wide-scale missile attack on Israel that was launched by Iran. Now, the Israeli army had confirmed that Iran fired a barrage of it and it was targeting some of the sensitive sites in Israel. The rockets were seen, in fact, flying over the night sky of Jerusalem. Sirens were sounded so that the early warning could be given to the residents to take up shelter at Jerusalem's bunkers, and also some of them have been told to immediately go to the bomb shelter by the military. Many of them, especially from various residential localities, have also captured the moment when these missiles were flying over Jerusalem, and this is in fact a retaliation by Iran for the attack on its proxy allies in Lebanon as well as in Gaza. These missiles were seen to have in fact flown in kind of a barrage over the whole of Israel. Several targets is what the Iranian media has said has been hit already. Well, as alarms echoed throughout Israel, citizens, in fact, were seen running to the bomb shelters and secure areas. Well, as alarms echoed throughout, the citizens scrambled to bomb shelters and secure areas to escape the incoming missiles. Iran state television reported that 80% of their missiles were in fact successfully hitting their targets. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, Israel's military spokesperson, had warned earlier of this potential large-scale attack from Iran and had already urged the citizens to be prepared and to seek shelter immediately when warning sirens were sounded. Well, the night sky over Jerusalem was illuminated by the rockets while explosions were heard in both the city and at the Jordan River Valley. Israeli army radio has reported nearly 180 missiles had been fired from Iran towards Israel, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards have claimed responsibility for launching those missiles and threaten even more crushing responses if Israel retaliated. Later, the Israeli military gave the all-clear signal allowing citizens to exit their shelters. Military spokesperson Haggari noted that there were no reports of injuries but emphasized the severity of the attack, warning of significant repercussions. Israeli air defenses also had kicked in. It is being said that the David Sling system as well as the Iron Dome system also kicked in as the ballistic missiles tried to approach some of its key cities. The Israeli radars had picked up the ballistic missiles being fired from Iran and had already ensured that their defense was ready. The U.S. had already given out a warning to Israel saying that an attack from Iran was imminent. These visuals, in fact, show how the night sky was, in fact, lit up with regard to it. This is another visual coming in from Jerusalem, from the Al-Aqsa Mosque area and from the Wailing Wall area, where some of the people who were at the Wailing Wall, who were, in fact, praying at the Wailing Wall, which is considered to be a very holy site for the Jewish community. It is being said that the Wailing Wall is, in fact, the wall of the temple that was Herod's temple that was destroyed by the Romans, and it only reflected that. From there, visuals were also captured with the missiles, in fact, flying over Jerusalem, and we, in fact, see that many of them were able to, in fact, capture the missiles being intercepted by the Iron Dome missile system as well. And this was the scene across Jerusalem. Most of the missiles had, in fact, moved from Jerusalem, had flown over Jerusalem and hit targets in Tel Aviv as well as in Jaffa. Tel Aviv being the economic hub of Israel. Now, as we were saying before, air defenses could be seen intercepting the missiles amid the sound of sirens and explosions over Tel Aviv. Now, as Iran fired the salvo of missiles in a retaliation for Israel's campaign in Lebanon, the Israeli army said that Israel's airspace was closed following the Iranian attack. International journalists had seen the missiles being intercepted in the airspace of neighboring Jordan as well. Israeli army radio said that nearly 200 missiles had been launched into Israel from Iran. Earlier, the military had announced that any ballistic missile strike from Iran was expected to be widespread and had already warned its public with regard to being in the safe rooms, and many of them did follow those warnings as such. These are, in fact, visuals showing the interception of these missiles. These visuals, in fact, show you the Iron Dome as well as David Sling being in action against the incoming ballistic missiles, and some of them have been intercepted as well. These visuals, in fact, show these missiles being intercepted mid-air just before it could go ahead and carry on with its impact trajectory. These ballistic missiles are said to be widespread when it was launched, so that it would be like a series of arrows and could overwhelm the radar system of Israel. So it was launched in large numbers. However, many of the journalists said that they did see the Iron Dome in action and intercepting the ballistic missiles over. We slip into a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
One of my friends was residing here. Every rainy season, he will take his mom or otherwise even the dog also, pet dog also, he will take the pet dog and go to the resort, which is at Banasura Sagar Dam. This time around, he didn't. So, completely washed out. There is no idea about my friend.
हमारा फैमिली में रिलेटेड फैमिली था और उसके रिलेशन में तकरीबन 20 लोग मरा हुआ। अभी हमको पता नहीं सलाह भी मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा। अभी 5 दिन हो गया।
Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
This is News9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
Meanwhile, missiles have streaked across the skies of West Bank as well as Iran launches retaliatory strike. In West Bank, air raid sirens blared across Israel and the explosion reverberated in Jerusalem and in the Jordan River Valley as well as Israelis rushed into the bomb shelters. Meanwhile, the residents of West Bank were able to in fact capture the moments when the missiles hit targets in Israel from the rooftops of their apartments in West Bank. Many of them caught the missiles moving towards their targets in Israel. Traces of multiple projectiles were also visible from various locations in the West Bank. Many of the residents of West Bank in the Palestinian Authority areas captured the moments when the missiles in fact moved towards Israel and also when the explosions took place. Most of them were on their rooftops as the missiles hit their targets in Israel. These visuals in fact show you how the West Bank residents were in fact using the mobile phone cameras to capture the moment of the missile strikes on Israel. Hundreds of missiles were launched by Iran onto the region and there have been continuous raids on West Bank as well in the recent past after Israel has technically come to the end of the war in Gaza and now concentrating its resources on its northern border. West Bank also has been seeing raids by the Israeli army to neutralize threats from the West Bank area as well. However, these are visuals that were captured from the West Bank region. You could see people in fact trying to capture on their mobile phones the attack that took place on Israel. Some of them did capture the moment when the missiles straight away rammed onto the Israeli targets. Loud explosions being heard as the Israeli defense forces try to intercept the missiles with their air defense systems, as well as some of them reaching its target and surpassing the defense systems as well. Meanwhile, one rocket from the salvo ballistic missiles that were fired at Israel did fall in the West Bank town of Tubas. Now, several men were seen gathered around the remains of that rocket that fell into the town. The rockets fired by Iran was in retaliation to Israel's campaign in Lebanon. These rockets had in fact moved from over the skies of West Bank as well, and one of those rockets did miss its target and landed at open field in the West Bank region. Many of them, in fact, came towards the remaining canister, and some of them took pictures of the missile system, and as of now you can see them removing it from the open field, and there have been this one report of a missile falling in the West Bank region in an open field. We slip into a short break now. News and updates will continue on the other side.
Cooking is an act of love. The first act of love you receive from our mothers in the families.
Modern Indian food is all about contemporary and innovative approach to traditional Indian cooking.
The presentation it's also important, you know.
I want to wear this white coat every day and then be a chef.
There are stories. If we name a whiskey's ingredient, there is a whole story behind that.
Cooking food is like a therapy, and eating one is like a pleasure I can give it to myself.
With Lounge Nights, I'm on a journey to celebrate and recognize the best food and nightlife establishments in various cities across India.
Radico presents Lounge Nights every Saturday and Sunday only on News9 Live.
जानना है तो देखिए, समझना है तो सुनिए, सीखना है तो पूछिए, और कमाना है तो खरीदिए। जानकारी, सलाह और निवेश सब एक ही सुपर ऐप पर। पैसे का सवाल है तो जवाब है Money9। आजादी पैसे की, अभी डाउनलोड करें।
Meanwhile, there have been reactions coming in from Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Iran's missile attack on Israel has failed and vowed retaliation. He said that Iran made a big mistake and it will pay for it.
איראן עשתה ערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו. סינואר ודף לא הבינו זאת, נסראללה ומוחסן לא הבינו זאת, וכנראה יש בטהרן אלה שלא מבינים זאת. הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו.
Meanwhile, Israel's UN envoy says that Israel will act and Iran will feel the consequences soon for their actions.
Just hours ago, the Iranian regime launched an unprecedented assault on Israel, launching close to 200 ballistic missiles at our civilian population. An attack on this scale has not been seen since the Blitz of London. 10 million people were forced into bomb shelters. Imagine the entire population of New York City in 10 minutes have to seek shelter. Children, babies, elderly. That's what happened in Israel. The Islamic regime in Iran has now shown the world its true face. They are a terrorist state. For years, they have armed terrorists and rogue states. They are responsible for the death of innocent civilians across the globe, from Europe's war zones to terror attacks in the Middle East, from embassies in Latin America to assault on US personnel. Iran's blood-stained fingerprints are everywhere. Until now, they have hidden behind proxies, but the mask has dropped. They have exposed themselves directly, launching hundreds of missiles into civilian areas. Their evil is now laid bare for all to see. I have called for an emergency session of the Security Council to convene as soon as possible to discuss this unprecedented attack and to issue a clear, unequivocal condemnation of Iran. Let me be very clear. We will defend our people. We will act. Iran will soon feel the consequences of their actions. The response will be painful.
Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has put up several posts on platform X in reference to Iran's missile attack on Israel. 3 consecutive posts were made by the Supreme Leader. The first one read, "Victory from God and a near conquest." The post also featured a picture of missiles coming out from the underground in a rather symbolic reference to the missile attack that was launched. The second post read, "Victory is for the people of truth." This last post made was a warning from Khamenei, which said, with God's help, the blows of the uprising front will become stronger and more painful on the worn and rotting body of the Zionist regime. Meanwhile, Iran's Armed Forces Chief Staff, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, on Tuesday threatened to repeat Tehran's attack against Israel and target its infrastructure. Now, speaking to the state television, Bagheri said that operations would be repeated several times stronger if Israel retaliated against a missile attack by Iran earlier on Tuesday evening. Iran had fired more than 180 ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon, and Israel vowed a painful response against its enemy.
رژیم صهیونیستی که به دیوانگی رسیده کنترل نشه توسط امریکا و اروپا و بخواد چنین جنایت‌های رو ادامه بده و یا علیه حاکمیت و تمامیت ارضی ما وارد عمل بشه، عملیات امشب با چند برابر بزرگی تکرار خواهد شد و تمام زیرساخت‌های اونها مورد اصابت قرار خواهد گرفت.
Meanwhile, the moment when IRGC Commander-in-Chief Major General Hossein Salami orders Iran's missile strike on Israel from Khatam al-Anbiya was in fact released to the media, the moment when he gave the order for the particular attack to take place, and also monitored along with other IRGC commanders the situation with regard to the operation that it had moved with, that is the attack on Israel. He was in fact at a secret command center at a location called Khatam al-Anbiya, where he was monitoring the operation and had given the go-ahead for the attack.
عملیات وعده صادق دو را با نام مبارک یا رسول الله یا رسول الله یا رسول الله آغاز کنید. توکل بر خدا کنید. موفق باشید. اللهم صل علی محمد و آل محمد. خیلی ماشاءالله داره.
Meanwhile, it was not about the missile attacks alone that Israel had to face. Israel had to also face terror attacks. 7 people were killed in a shooting attack in the Jaffa neighborhood of Tel Aviv. Israel said that 2 shooters were neutralized and that the families of the victims had been notified. Footage posted to social media showed gunmen getting off at a light rail station and opening fire. Medics and paramedics provided on-site medical treatment to a number of wounded people with varying degrees of injuries, including some who were unconscious. The attack took place minutes before Iran launched a barrage of missiles at Israel. This was the chaos that was created because of the terror attack that happened. 2 terrorists were neutralized. One had a gun with him, the other a knife. This was in Tel Aviv's Jaffa area. The shooting took place at Jerusalem Street. The CCTV cameras captured the 2 gunmen carrying on with the terror attack, and they were neutralized by the Israeli security forces. 7 people were killed and several were injured by this terror attack that shook Jaffa as well as Tel Aviv. Medics and paramedics had to provide on-site medical treatment to a number of wounded people, and there was varying degree of injuries that were reported. The attack first took place at the light railway station where the attackers had alighted and carried on with their attack, and later they moved into the suburbs of the city. Meanwhile, an Iranian news agency released the footage of what it says are the launching of missiles towards Israel earlier in the evening of Monday. Now, it is being said that Iran fired ballistic missiles at Israel in retaliation for Israel's campaign against Tehran's Hezbollah allies in Lebanon, drawing vows of sharp response from both Israel and the United States. Israel said more than 180 missiles were launched into Israel from Iran, and Israeli air defenses were activated to intercept them. These were the visuals that were released by the Iranian media of their ballistic missiles that were prepped for launch, and the launch order being received from the IRGC chief, and the missiles being launched in large numbers towards the Israeli targets. These missiles were seen, in fact, moving towards Israel, and they were in fact programmed to attack airfields as well as the headquarters of Israel's military infrastructures, and also some of its military units. There have been reports coming in as well that these attacks also hit a few of the air bases of Israel. Meanwhile, Israel was not the only country that was trying to intercept the missiles that were launched from Iran. The U.S. Navy warships fired about a dozen interceptors against the Iranian missiles headed towards Israel. This is what the Pentagon has said. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps said that the assault was in retaliation for Israel's killing of its militant leaders and aggression in Lebanon as well as in Gaza. Now, its forces used hypersonic Fatah missiles for the first time, and 90% of its missiles successfully hit, is what Iran claims. No injuries were reported in Israel, but one man was killed in the occupied West Bank, is what authorities are saying now. Now, let us give you an idea of the kind of missiles that Iran had used against Israel. In their attack against Israel on Tuesday night, Iran's forces used 180 hypersonic Fatah missiles for the first time. 90% of its missiles successfully hit their targets in Israel, as per reports from the Revolutionary Guards. Now, let us give you an idea of what these missiles are. One is that this hypersonic missile is named Fatah. These hypersonic missiles can travel at speeds of up to 15 times the speed of sound and can penetrate missile defense system. The hypersonic missile has a range of 1,400 kilometers and uses solid propellants, which allows high maneuverability. The name Fatah has been chosen by the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and it translates to the opener. Now, unlike conventional ballistic missiles, the hypersonic missiles fly on a trajectory low in the atmosphere. This enables them to reach their targets more quickly and then a less chance of being intercepted by modern air defenses. Amir Ali Hajizadeh, the chief of the aerospace force of Iran's Revolutionary Guards, has said that they are developing hypersonic missiles at an event in November last year. Now, let's give you an idea of the Shahab-1. It is 300 kilometers in terms of its range. Shahab-2 has got 500 kilometers. Shahab-3 is 2,000 kilometers. Fateh is around 3 kilometers. Zulfikar is around 700 kilometers. Qaim-1 is around 750 kilometers. Meanwhile, the U.S. President Joe Biden said that there were an active discussion ongoing over how Israel would respond to an Iranian ballistic missile attack and that the consequences for Tehran remain to be seen.
Before I began, I wanted to say a few words about Iran's missile attack on Israel today. At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and U.S. military. It's also a testament to intensive planning between the United States and Israel to anticipate and defend against the brazen attack we expected. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel. And I've spent the morning and part of the afternoon in the Situation Room and meeting with my whole national security team and consulting with the Israelis indirectly because in terms of their impact on us. And the national security team has been, as I said, in constant contact with Israeli officials and their counterparts. I haven't spoken with them. We have spoken with all those people, and I'll be talking to them, and my message will depend on what we finally conclude is needed.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that the United States is tracking the events in the Middle East very closely and is committed to Israel's defense.
A few hours ago, Iran, for the second time in the space of 5 months, launched a direct attack on Israel, including some 200 ballistic missiles. This is totally unacceptable, and the entire world should condemn it. Initial reports suggest that Israel, with the active support of the United States and other partners, effectively defeated this attack. We demonstrated once again our commitment to Israel's defense. We'll remain in very close touch with Israel and other partners in the region in the hours and days ahead.
Meanwhile, United States National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan condemned Iran's ballistic missile attack on Israel as a significant escalation, adding Israel appeared to have defeated the attack without loss of life.
Today, Iran launched nearly 200 ballistic missiles towards targets in Israel. The United States military coordinated closely with the Israeli Defense Forces to help defend Israel against this attack. U.S. naval destroyers joined Israeli air defense units in firing interceptors to shoot down inbound missiles. President Biden and Vice President Harris monitored the attack and the response from the White House Situation Room, joined in person and remotely by their national security team. We are still working with the IDF and the authorities in Israel to assess the impact of the attack. But at this time, and I stress at this time, we do not know of any deaths in Israel. We are tracking the reported death of a Palestinian civilian in Jericho in the West Bank. We do not know of any damage to aircraft or strategic military assets in Israel. In short, based on what we know at this point, this attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. We are also aware of reports of a terrorist attack in Jaffa that took the lives of a number of Israeli civilians and wounded several others today. Our condolences go out to the families of the victims and to the family of the Palestinian civilian in Jericho. The word fog of war was invented for a situation like this. This is a fluid situation. We will consult with the Israelis on next steps in terms of the response and how to deal with what Iran has just done, and we will continue to monitor for further threats and attacks from Iran and its proxies. Obviously, this is a significant escalation by Iran, a significant event, and it is equally significant that we were able to step up with Israel and create a situation in which no one was killed in this attack in Israel, so far as we know at this time. He is tracking this minute by minute. We are very much deeply in touch with the Israelis, and insofar as we have calls to read out, we'll make sure to read them out with you. We are proud of the actions that we've taken alongside Israel to protect and defend Israel. We have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make that the case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jay.
Well, the Pentagon did go ahead and say that 2 U.S. Navy destroyers did fire upon a dozen interceptors against Iranian missiles aimed at Israel. Pentagon spokesperson Major General Patrick Ryder told reporters that no other U.S. military assets were used to shoot down the missiles, which were all fired from inside Iran.
As you're aware, Iran conducted a significant attack against Israel today, launching approximately 200 ballistic missiles targeting several locations in Israel. We condemn these reckless attacks by Iran, and we call on Iran to halt any further attacks, including from its proxy forces. During the attack, the U.S. military coordinated closely with the Israeli Defense Forces to help defend Israel. U.S. Navy destroyers deployed to the Middle East region supported the defense of Israel by firing approximately a dozen interceptors against the incoming Iranian missiles. I'm not aware of any pre-warning by Iran about their potential attack. As you know, this is something we've been following very closely for a while, based on the threats of retaliation by Iran. And so we've been closely consulting with Israel for a while now to be prepared in the eventuality. And as today demonstrated, we were prepared. And we were able to successfully work alongside Israel to defend them from this attack. Of course, we have a lot of capability in the region, a lot of things that are there to be prepared for a wide variety of threats. But in terms of the launching of these interceptors, it was those 2 destroyers. You know, if you take a step back here, we fully support Israel's right to defend itself. You just saw a very significant ballistic missile attack by Iran against Israel. And so, we'll continue to work alongside them to support their defense. We, of course, do not want to see a wider regional conflict. You've heard us say that many times, and we'll continue to work towards that end. But we also fully understand the fact that this was a significant attack by Iran. And so we're going to continue to consult closely, and we're going to continue to support their defense. Well, look, like I said before, we've been monitoring this for a while. Iran had been very public about its threats to retaliate, and so it's something that we've been monitoring. Certainly, this was a significant attack, probably about twice the size in terms of scope of what we saw earlier. But again, we're still assessing the outcomes of this. And as I highlighted at the top, we certainly condemn this reckless attack, this direct attack against Israel, and we'll continue to support Israel's defense. You don't launch that many missiles at a target without the intent of hitting something. So absolutely, just like the last time, their intent is to cause destruction. And so fortunately, Israel has very significant air defense capabilities, and the U.S., of course, played a role in helping on that front as well.
Meanwhile, the United States has called on every nation in the world to join it in condemning Iran's attack on Israel after Tehran fired a salvo of ballistic missiles at Israel, which the State Department said was a brazen and unacceptable attack.
Iran launched nearly 200 ballistic missiles against a number of targets in Israel. The United States once again came to Israel's defense against these attacks, just as we participated in Israel's defense when Iran launched its April 13th attack. Our initial assessment is that Israel, with direct assistance from the United States and its partners, was able to successfully defeat this attack. This was a brazen, unacceptable attack by Iran, and every nation in the world must join us in condemning it. As the President has made clear, our support for Israel's security is ironclad. We will continue to stand with the people of Israel at this critical moment. At this time, we are not aware of any damage to U.S. facilities. As you know, we issued an order earlier today for our personnel, State Department personnel in Israel to shelter at their homes. We have full accountability for all our personnel. We're not aware of any civilian casualties inside Israel, let alone an American citizen casualty. There is one report of a Palestinian who died in the West Bank, but no damage to any U.S. facility either. We had no kind of warning from the government of Iran that they were going to launch such an attack. I'll say a couple things about that. First, of course, Israel has the right to defend itself, as any nation does. In terms of what Israel's response will be, of course, there must be consequences for Iran for this attack. We've made clear that there must be consequences. I'm not going to get into what those consequences are today, but there are things on which we will be coordinating with our Israeli counterparts. And I think in the immediate aftermath of this attack, we are going to coordinate with them on what any response might be. I think it's important that we are able to defeat this attack through successful work with Israel and with our partners, and we will work with them on what a response might look like, but I'm not at the position just 2.5 hours after this event occurred to offer what that might look like today. Certainly this initial wave of an attack is over, which is not to say that there are other waves coming or that is not to say that there are other waves coming. We saw an initial attack earlier today against the state of Israel. Certainly it would be incredibly reckless and would continue to be escalatory were Iran to launch further attacks on Israel, and we'll be monitoring in the hours ahead. Where we are on the ceasefire talks in Gaza is that the terrorist group that Iran funds, Hamas, has been unwilling to come to the table to engage the past several weeks. So yes, it's true that we have not been able to advance these ceasefire talks, but it's not because of any lack of effort by the United States or our partners in the region. It's because the terrorist organization that Iran has sponsored for years and years and years has refused to come to the table. So if Iran wants to use the breakdown of ceasefire talks as an excuse for its actions today, it needs to point to the terrorist group that it controls. It's Hamas that has been responsible in recent weeks for the breakdown of those talks.
Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that Britain stands with Israel after Iran launched a wave of missiles in retaliation for Israel's incursion into Lebanon.
In the last few hours, the Iranian regime has launched over 200 ballistic missiles at civilian targets in Israel. It's too soon to assess the impact fully, but I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis. We stand with Israel and we recognize her right to self-defense in the face of this aggression. Iran must stop these attacks, together with its proxies like Hezbollah. Iran has menaced the Middle East for far too long. Chaos and destruction brought not just to Israel, but to the people they live amongst in Lebanon and beyond. Make no mistake, Britain stands full square against such violence. We support Israel's reasonable demand for the security of its people.
Meanwhile, explosions rocked the Lebanese capital of Beirut in the early hours of Wednesday, with smoke seen billowing from buildings near the airport. The Israeli military confirmed the strike, stating they are targeting Hezbollah positions in Beirut. The attack comes after the Israeli military issued fresh evacuation orders in the southern suburbs of the city, warning that strikes would be carried out on Hezbollah-affiliated buildings. The situation in Beirut remains tense as Israeli-Hezbollah hostilities continue to escalate. Well, that's all in this edition of the Bulletin, but we will continually get the coverage from West Asia for you as the tensions escalate between Israel and Iran, as well as Iran's proxies.
Terrorism always flows like water. It will go in the direction where there is no obstacle.
Bloodbath in Jammu. 5 soldiers die after terrorists open fire at an army convoy in Kathua.
Pakistan essentially is doing is opening a new frontier in the Jammu region.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free